Yesterday was a little cool. It was okay. But today seems like it's going to be a decent day. So get on outside and get some vitamin D, because us up in this northern hemisphere, we do not get enough vitamin D, so we have to supplement ourselves. So we got a great show for you today. This is a week before the fabulous program on August 7th. You guys better get it. Oh, you know what? Oh, I got to say this before I introduce this. I got to say this. Tristan, get by your phones, get your pencil and paper there, or something to write with Brother Tristan. We're going to be giving away 5 sets of tickets to August 7th Healing and Atonement program. If you call in, when I give you the signal, call in, you're going to be receiving a pair of tickets for each caller, all right? And that's going to be donated by my vice president, Brother Sappho, from the Carter G. Woodson Project. He told me that yesterday. I almost forgot to do that. Okay, we're going to be giving away tickets. All right, but in the remote studio, I got my main man, Brother Vince. What's going on?
Man, this is crazy because I'm on my phone and I'm on the computer at the same time. We're doing Facebook Live and all kinds of stuff to get this message to the folks. But here we are, another beautiful day in Cleveland. It was a little cool last night, man. Sleeps on and I thought, dang, it's feeling like fall.
Well, yeah.
But hey,
this, like you always say though, it's Cleveland, so bring your umbrella and your coat and your sandals. Like keep them with you in the car just in case.
Right. Yes, indeed. So we've been building up to our conversation about what's going to happen next Saturday, and one of the prime players in the event that will be coming to you live in Cleveland next weekend will be our guest. He is Dr. David Whitaker, a.k.a. Nana Kwamina II. He's a dedicated father, teacher, cultural advocate, and an Akan Chief. In 1980, he simultaneously received his Doctor of Philosophy degree from Case Western Reserve University with a specialization in educational psychology and his Juris Doctor's degree from Cleveland Marshall College of Law. Nana Whitaker has been a career educator and cultural advocate for over 4 decades in his unrelenting quest to aid the development of urban students, families, and communities. He is no stranger to 360 Info Network. He's the brother that made it possible for me to go to Ghana, and he doesn't know it, but I'm planning to be his next door neighbor sooner than he knows. Welcome to 360 Info Network. Nana Kra, Dr. David Whitaker, ESQ.
Thank you, brother, and thank you, Brother Lynn Hamtonio.
Yes,
this is surprising news. I'm potentially getting a new neighbor.
No, you need 2 new neighbors, 2 new neighbors.
That very flattering introduction. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here and continue this work.
Yes. So Brother Antonio, gave us a clue about what's coming this coming Saturday. We got a few minutes before we go to the break, so why don't we just get that business out of the way, and then we can talk about some things that you can let us know about, that you are circumnavigating the globe and spending time in the beloved place across the Atlantic Ocean. Let's talk about August 7th, the name of the event, Brother Antonio. Give it to us.
Yeah. Yes, an Atonement, Healing, and Wellness workshop, and, I collaborated with Brother Whitaker, David, on this, and all the players. I mean, these guys, the 4 speakers are just dedicated to the struggle and, and the enlightenment and empowerment of our people all their lives, primarily, And so you're going to get some great information and come out. So I collaborated with Brother Whitaker, and he was on board right away. And Brother Whitaker felt the need as well to talk to our people about enlightenment and getting some of this negative energy out of them and raise to their God consciousness. Brother Whitaker.
Absolutely, and the whole world is talking about a reboot. And the notion of a reboot if we're not focused on our own personal reboot, that means we're going to be somehow a part of somebody else's reboot, that we don't understand what its mission is, what its objectives are, but we can almost be certain that we're not included in the reboot that somebody else says they're doing. So this serves as our own personal commencement of our reboot, so that we know how to come out of this time with better sense of who we are, a better understanding of what we must do, a better understanding of where we are and where we must go.
Well said. Well said.
Okay, so what we're talking about is the Atonement, Healing, and Wellness Workshop. It will take place on August 7th from 2 to 6 p.m. at Wings Academy. The address there, I believe, is 10615.
That's it.
Yeah, 10615 Lamontier Avenue. You can catch that off of MLK, just south of Buckeye Road. So it's right around the corner from one of them other schools that we don't want to talk about, but we can talk about Wings Academy because it is a great place for learning for African American students. Also on that program will be Professor Baina Bello, who has been a guest on 360 a couple of times within the past month, our beloved Dr. James Brown, and the other scholar, Mr. Wayne B. Chandler. We're going to be talking about atonement, healing, and wellness. You can get into this event for $10, and as Antonio was saying, he's going to be giving away a few pairs of tickets, so I hope you got something to write with so you can take advantage of this author and then show up, because there will be definitely a beautiful reason for you to be there, and you will get something from this. So with that, we want to make this move towards our commercial break, and we're going to come back. You're listening to 360 Info Network with Antonio and Vince Robinson, and our guest this morning, Dr. Quad David Whitaker, also known as Nana Kwamina II. We'll be back with more 360 Info Network right after these messages.
All right there, brother.
Welcome back, 360 Info Network with Antonio and yours truly, Vince Robinson. Our guest this morning is Dr. Quad David Whitaker, a.k.a. Nana Kwamina II. Before we took the break, we were actually talking about the Great Reset. We mentioned it during the break for those of you who are listening to us live on Facebook. There's a lot going on in the world right now that many people are not aware of because they're distracted by many things that are out there to keep our attention as they move to transfer wealth from the poor to the elite or to the rich. They have 99% of everything and they want 100% of everything. And a lot of that everything is what comes from the continent of Africa. None of you spent considerable time in Africa this past year thanks to what folks are calling the pandemic. But we just want to get your perspective of how things are right now that we've been affected by this global phenomenon, and the fact that this wealth is being transferred, and we are kind of like innocent bystanders, not really participating in this transfer of wealth. You are part of an effort to create a university on the continent, and we definitely want people to know about that, as well as knowing how important it is to be involved in transferring wealth to the African community. So talk to us about the university and talk to us about what you know about the transfer of wealth that's taking place.
Well, let me lay a quick foundation. First, apologize at the outset for what I'm about to say, but I know it's true, but I don't want to offend any listeners. But not everybody studies these things every day like many of us do. So consequently, the vast majority of people, as you just indicated, don't really know the dynamics that are taking place. They don't know how to interpret the events, the news headlines that they see. So they really have no basis of information that helps them to decipher what is going on. So I would just like to suggest to people, rather than think about whether you agree or disagree with what I'm going to say, just try to take it in and assume that I'm not crazy, and assume that I didn't just think of these things on the way here to the show today, and that I've been doing some work on the continent and outside of the continent to try to verify whether these things are actually taking place. So here's the second part of the foundation is, all of us, I'm a math teacher, so if we do the math, we know that we have been subjected to oppression, exploitation, and imperialism for 500 years. And no one can convince me with data that we have made legitimate, genuine progress in 500 years. So that tells me as a math teacher, there's a formula that's working somehow, and we haven't been able to circumvent it. We haven't been able to negate it. We haven't been able to accomplish things by the use of it. So we must think about something different that we've overlooked somehow. I've come to the conclusion that Dr. Francis Cress Welsing told us this some time ago, a long time ago actually, but it didn't resonate with me like it did most recently. She said, if you don't understand racism and white supremacy as a national and international scheme to imperialize, control, and oppress people, then everything you think you know is going to make you confused. And everything that you know you don't know, you won't have any understanding of. So we have got to get a much better handle on what is racism. And a lot of our people erroneously assume that racism is intense vocalized prejudice or discrimination or bias. But that's not what racism is. Racism is to take those feelings that may be negative or contrary to the feelings of others and having the power to do something about those feelings that will negatively impact other people. So the racism that we experience in the United States, we describe as slavery, starting with slavery. On the continent of Africa, the racism that they experience from after the Berlin Conference all the way up to 1957 and continuing today, we call colonialism. The same process has just got a different name. If you're in South Africa, they call the same process apartheid. So this same process of exploitation, domination, oppression has various names depending on who's implementing it and where it's located. So we have to get a handle on this because most of the people on the African continent, now it's 1.2 or 3 billion people. I doubt 10% of them understand what we're talking about right now. They've gone to school, they've gone to colonial schools with colonial curriculums, with colonial teachers. They still do the colonial education today. It's still the same colonial education. They go to school, they learn nothing about Africa, and they live in Africa. And what they learn about Africa is negated or diminished or is negative, which convinces them to, A, be beholden to and look up to the Europeans, B, to discount their very families that have raised them. They move from the villages to a big city, and if you ask them what village they came from, they're bashful and they don't want to tell you because they want you to think that they've always been in a big city like they have it going on. So the minds of our people have been co-opted and reprogrammed into believing that Europeans are the best thing, or Western ideas or Western people are the best things that we can do. So we have to figure a way. Part of this program on Saturday is to help us figure out how can we cleanse ourselves from these negative, poisonous ideas, behaviors, practices, notions of making progress, because we're still in the same place we've been in all the time. So we've got to figure out why we should do that and how to do that. Because if we don't do that, most of my taglines on posts, I say, as the 10th man in the Africa war correspondent. And I say it's a war correspondent because there's a war going on the African continent. The war is engaged in capturing and maintaining the minds of 1.2 billion people. The war is related to outsiders going in and taking all the resources that are in the ground, in the continent, and shipping them someplace else. And you have to understand that there's no technology made on Earth that doesn't need raw materials or minerals from Africa. You simply cannot make cell phones without materials from Africa. You can't get these things working without materials from Africa. And so Africa is under attack, not the attacks from warring groups, clans or tribes that are warring because they're trying to somehow get their share of scarce resources, because outsiders have colonized the whole mineral resource of the continent. So it's very difficult unless we change our mentality about how to do this. There's an African proverb that says, you cannot dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. So most of our efforts here, we are trying to get ahead in the United States by doing the same thing that other people tell us that we need to do in order to get ahead. And once we use those tools, we go to the universities, we graduate, and we get a degree, we find out that we're not really that much farther ahead because we still can't find a job. If we find a job, we can't keep the job. If we find a job, we end up training someone to replace us. And so we find out that the use of the master's tools cannot be utilized to dismantle the master's house. So we have to do something different. And this program on Saturday is the beginning of the conversation. A lot of people know these things already, but the common person walking around every day, doesn't know there's a war going on in their own mother country. They have no idea that there's a war going on there to steal everything, subjugate the people permanently, and we don't even know this is taking place because we say it's in another place, and I don't have any connection to Africa, but we're the only people outside of their homeland that would boast that we have no connection with our homeland. Jewish people don't do that. Spanish people don't do that. Jamaicans don't do that. Caribbeans don't do that. Nobody does that except us. So we are negating the very mother that would be vital to our survival. And so we have to change this mentality because we have more opportunities in Africa right now today, despite the war that's going on, than we ever have right here in this country. And I can attest to that. I'm more popular in Africa than I am right here, and I've been here for 77 years. I can get more things done in Africa right now today by the telephone than anything I can do here in person. So we've been working to try to provide opportunities for our people, lay the foundation. Now, the university is designed, it's called the Wakanda One Obokese University of Excellence. In the essence, the foundation, the theory, the psychology behind the university is you can't change Africa unless you get rid of the colonial mentality. And you need an educational system to train people to think as African people. We've been trained here to think as Europeans. So very few of us actually think about Pan-Africanism, African-centered approaches to things, partnering with our brothers and sisters, because we think that we need to be rugged individualists like John Wayne or some star in the movies. So we have to do everything by ourselves. But nobody does that in the world except us. So we have to train our people to think differently. And so we're going to put a university there. It's been sanctioned. It's been formed in terms of paperwork. The African Union has endorsed it, so we can put this same university, once it's up and going, in every one of the 54 African nations. It's the first African-centered, unapologetic Pan-African university in Ghana and probably on the continent. So that's our approach. We figure that if you have 2 generations of children starting at age 5, 2 generations of children could probably change the whole continent. We understand that the elevation and the power of China was created by the Chinese people in the diaspora that joined and linked and provided support for the continental Chinese, and that's how they have become a world power. So we know that all the people we have in the diaspora have the expertise, they have the knowledge, they have the certification, they have the training. If they were to be involved in Africa, Africa would be engaged in a renaissance, because everybody listening to this call could be considered an expert in Africa as soon as you got off the plane, because you have skills, you have degrees, you have credentials, you have work experience. The African people don't have that. And of the 1.2 billion people on the African continent, 50% of that 1.2 billion are young people aged 20 to 25. So we can see if you educate a group of people from 20 to 25, in 10 years they will have started to make some significant change in the countries that they live in. They're eager to work. They follow directions. They're very polite. They don't give us a whole lot of grief about what we say. They say, "What do you want me to do, Nana?" And I'll do that. If you show me how to do it, I'll do it as best I can. So we don't have the pushback that we have here. We have knowledgeable people here, but we don't necessarily have willing students to learn from the knowledgeable people, because we've been trained to think that all of us have knowledge, and we say our opinions are the same as anybody else's documented data. So it's just a silly mentality that we have here, where we should listen to people that know how to lead, find the people that know how to lead, and follow them until we figure out how we can lead ourselves. And so this goes back to your intro, Hamptonia. What you do for yourself depends on what you think of yourself. And what you think of yourself depends upon what you know of yourself. So if you don't know anything of yourself, you think of yourself the way that somebody tells you they think of you, because you have no independent information to determine anything. So we figure that we have to give our people information. We have to show them opportunities. We have to give them the roadmap, and then they will carry on. And so we will have the first ever African-centered university in the Asebu Kingdom in the central region of Ghana on 104 acres of land that's been given to us. And we're going to transfer the school that you're going to come to see, Wings Academy. We're going to transfer this school to that site and have a K through college campus complex that, based on the Booker T. Washington model, we have enough land to grow food. So the students will grow the food they eat. They will make the clothes they wear. They will print the books that they study from. They will build the buildings that they learn in. So we're going to resurrect the Booker T. Washington model as part of this large educational complex. We've just entered into a memorandum of understanding with Cheney University. They're going to help us do tilapia fish farming. Ghana, now get this, Ghana has a very healthy, robust tilapia diet. But a large percentage of the tilapia that is eaten in Ghana comes from China. So we figure if the university could become a tilapia fish farmer, you not only have a way to develop the skills in students, but you have a way to produce a revenue stream for students. So they could go to school and become a tilapia sales agent to go into hotels and restaurants, and we could eat tilapia. You could sell tilapia. You could market, you could ship tilapia. So we have a big market that's waiting to be exploited. So Cheney University has a 20-year history of aquaponics and aquaculture, and we've just entered into an agreement with them where they're going to help us set up the same thing on our campus. So we're going to start growing, do tilapia fish farming and other aquacultural farming. And the people in the area will farm. They will get different revenue streams than what they have now. And so it's all about coming together and working together. So, Vince, that's a little overview.
Yeah, Nana, I gotta peel back the onion a little bit because you said a lot in the past 15 minutes or so, and just let me address these issues really quickly.
Okay.
One, you talked about the youth movement on the continent of Africa and how much of a prominent role they're going to play. And one of the burning questions that I have, just based on your involvement in the politics and the economics of Africa, is, you know, what you just shared about fish farming. I mean, you know, I've been there with you, standing there in Elmina looking at the fishing boats and knowing how critical it is for Ghanaian fishermen to fish. But at the same time, you're saying that Ghanaians are eating Chinese tilapia, which makes no sense to me. Secondly, it's just the whole notion of, you know, the Europeans and the Chinese having so much influence on the continent of Africa, robbing the continent of its resources, exploiting the continent of resources, and knowing that African leadership is responsible for this. And the burning question in my mind is, when is African leadership going to let go of the handcuffs that Europeans and Chinese have put on them and take control of their own resources and take control of the destiny of African people across the planet by taking control of what is ours?
Can I respond to that? I see this,
yes,
very clearly now from being there. You know that Ghana is on the coast of the Gulf of Guinea. And so you could sit at any restaurant and look out at the ocean. So the African leaders are under intense pressure from outsiders to work deals. Many of the African leaders would like to resist, but they're also subjected to threats. So it becomes somewhat difficult. They would also like to resist, but I often tell people, if you look out at the Gulf of Guinea, if you're in a boat and the boat capsized and you're out there treading water, if a Chinese boat comes by with a life preserver, would you turn it down? No. If a British boat came by, would you say, no, I'm going to wait for the diaspora, my brothers and sisters, they know I'm here, so they're coming pretty soon, so I'll just wait for them. So their preference would be to deal with us. But since we're not coming, they deal with whoever's there because they have major practical problems. And so you will eat food from any vendor if you're starving to death, as opposed to taking your chances and wait till you get back home. If the distance is great, you'll stop and eat because you're starving. So we are the solution to the problem that we're talking about, actually. We have enough resources. We have enough skill and expertise. And when the Chinese enter into an arrangement with Ghana, for example, they get a contract. They give the government money that's needed to do whatever or line the pockets of some corrupt, unscrupulous politicians, and that goes on. So, but the Chinese say if they're going to build a bridge, they bring all of their own workers. So your local workers don't get work. If they're going to put in a road, they bring all Chinese workers, Chinese supervisors, and you may hold a flag. So those of us that are on the continent in Ghana, we're constantly arguing that, why are you doing this? Why is this happening? Because there's plenty of your local people that can do these things. Recently, the Chinese had taken over or negotiated the takeover of the electrical company that provides electricity. And as you know, Yao, the electricity can go off 2 times a day, they off for a day and a half, come back on, go back off. So the Chinese were going to handle this. And many people complained, but they got the contract anyway. And they probably got the contract because they can give surplus money for what the government sees as creating the ability to do other things besides the contract, or line their own pockets. And I'm not suggesting for 1 second that that's not a problem. But anyway, the Chinese run this electrical plant. That's the national grid. The Chinese are running. But every month the power is no better. So the Ghanaian government finally decides, why don't we take some Ghanaian engineers and train them how to use the plant? They have degrees. They're trained already. They're just not working. We'll let them do it. So they hired all Ghanaian technicians, gave them training. They got rid of the Chinese. And the first report was they were saving $36 million per month over what the Chinese were charging to provide this service. They had no glitches, but these are the things that the colonized mind stumbles upon rather than logically thinks about. So if the Chinese, it doesn't work, you get your own people, you find out they can do it better than anybody, and you save $30 million a month. So this is the process, but we are trying to accelerate that process too by showing and constantly saying that we've got to think with our own minds. We've got to stop this love affair with European stuff. And many of us are finding it very, very strange that 5 or 6 African leaders that are said to have been anti-COVID vaccine have been murdered in the past 7 months. The president of Madagascar just last week circumvented an attempted assassination on his life.
Oh, my goodness.
And he is the one that first developed the COVID herbal drink. He's the same president that announced that the World Health Organization had offered him $20 million to spike the drink, but he refused. And just last week, there was an attempted assassination that they circumvented, and they found 2 former French police officers, military, were involved in it. So this is part of the war. So the powers are fairly powerful. So they can suggest that we would like to do A, B, and C. If you say no, then as Malcolm said, then they'll come back and say, well, you have to do D, E, and F. If you say no, then you can only resist this so much. For those that aren't familiar, Gere, the actor, I can't think of his first name, Richard Gere.
Richard Gere. Mm-hmm.
Richard Gere in the movie The Day of the Jackal. The Day of the Jackal is the cinematographic display of what was in the book Confessions of a Corporate.
That's right. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
And what they do is they offer you something if you don't take it. Then they appeal to you if you don't take it. Then they send in the jackals to kill you. So this is part of the war that's going on, that most of our people look on the news and they say, well, I don't know why African people can't get themselves together. And they got all this, they got all that, but there's a war going on. And it's not fighting like we're talking about, fighting out in the street, but it's fighting through policies, contracts, negotiations, for resources. You'd be surprised to find that Ghana, on its exports, to show you how corrupt and insidious this is, Ghana exports cocoa. Hershey Chocolate is the biggest cocoa producer probably in the United States, if not the biggest one of them. The cocoa farmers get very little money. The Ghanaian people can't even establish their own prices to sell cocoa. The buyer establishes the prices. And they say, if you don't pay this, this is what we're willing to pay. If you don't want to pay that, we'll forget the cocoa. So these are the things they're up against. You can't imagine having a product and you can't set your price. It sounds crazy, but that's what goes on. So this is all the residue of colonialism, which is what we say in the university. We've got to change the mentality of the people, because otherwise the colonial mentality will keep regenerating through the schools, through the policies, through the courts, through the government, through parliament. It will just keep going because it's a machine. It looks good, it looks harmless, so we use euphemistic terms to say, we'll give you aid. Well, the aid that you get doesn't enable you to do anything. when you think about all the strings that are tied to the aid, you have to buy stuff from America. You can't get it from next door to a country that has it. You have to buy it from America. If you don't do that, you can't get the aid. If you can't get the aid, you can't do the things you're trying to do. So, what you're saying is really the point. It's really at the heart of the matter, but it requires some courage and sacrifice to do it.
Yes, it requires us. Yes. It requires
sacrifices.
Right. It requires us to do. And because of the war that we're in, many of us are choosing not to do. But what we have to do right now is we have to take this commercial break. So we'll just remind the listeners that...
I hope I didn't take too long.
No, you're good. You're listening to 360 Info Network on AM 1490 WERE with your host, Hamtonio, and yours truly, Vince Robinson. We're having a fascinating discussion with Dr. Quad David Whitaker, who will be here in Cleveland on August 7th for an Atonement and Healing session that will happen at Wings Academy. And we'll give you more details on the other side of this. We'll be right back. We're back, 360 Info Network with Hamtonio, Vince Robinson, and our guest, Dr. Quad David Whitaker, who will be participating in the Atonement, Healing, and Wellness Workshop. It will take place at Wings Academy on August 7th. That's next Saturday from 2 to 6 p.m. The address there is 10615 10615 Lamontier Avenue. The cost is $10. And I think Hamtonio is going to give away a few of those tickets today, so stay tuned. That opportunity for you to get those tickets is coming up relatively soon. The guest,
you know what? I was going to say, Vince, when you're doing that, I was going to say just open up the lines, just let Tristan start, because we only got 10 minutes. They can start calling in 578-1490, 578-1490. The first 5 get a pair of tickets. Tristan, get your pens going. Take down the name and number so I can get back with them. Okay, 578-1490, 216. Okay, V.
Okay, so just so that you know, Dr. Whitaker is going to be joined by Dr. James Brown, Wayne B. Chandler, and Professor Baina Bello from Haiti. You know, she wrote that book, She Rose of the Haitian Revolution, and last weekend she just lit us up with so much profound information about the role that sisters have played, not just in the Haitian Revolution, but other revolutions and other wars around the world, including on the very continent of Africa, from which we are from, many of us anyway. So you want to join us for that and, go ahead and call in, take advantage of those tickets. But, even if you don't win tickets today, you should come anyway because there's so much for you to gain by attending this workshop. Each of the presenters are experts in the respective fields that they are dealing with, and it is extremely beneficial to you. Nana, you have raised this idea of the creation of an educational platform that can revolutionize the lives of Africans, not just on the continent, but from around the world. I wasn't aware of the primary education component. You're talking about K through university, which is really, I mean, that's from basically from the sprout to the tree.
That's it. But there's another proverb that's one of my favorites in Ghana that says, nobody tells all that they know.
Okay.
So I usually don't mention that part until someone says, well, you can't wait till college. We need some elementary school. We need some pipeline place. I said, well, we got that figured out, too. I wait for them to criticize something. Like I said, the university won't be any good because by the time you wait, then you got to retool the minds of the person that comes into the university. I said, you're right about that. So that's why we have planned for the following. We have a state-recognized quality school program and that has produced the results that the state of Ohio says are exemplary. So we're going to take the model and we're going to transport it and transplant it to Ghana and it will work. We know how to do that. We're into the 17th year, so we know what we're doing when it comes to educating people. So the students will come, we'll teach them, they'll learn, and it'll work. This school will work better there because it's on the African continent. It's about African-centeredness, and the students will respond to it even better than the students respond to it here.
Yeah. It's really interesting that you point out the fact that you get so much more love there than you do here. And you've also intimated that those of us who are here, when we go there, we're automatically experts just because of the benefits that we've received through Western education and so forth and so on. But what I really want to bring to the minds and the consciousness of the folks who are listening to this radio show right now is that we always talk about what we need to do. We always talk about what's not happening. And as we have this conversation, this is being built. And it's a collaborative effort between those who are there on the continent and those of us who are in the diaspora that fully understand and recognize the fact that we are one people. We are a global people. We are a global family. And it's in our best interest to have that cooperation and the collaboration so that we can change the things that we've been complaining about all this time. We've been here in America struggling for our civil rights. Every 4 years, they come to us and say, we need to do this, we need to do that. And what happens after 4 years? We find ourselves in the same place talking about the same needs. And what changes? Nothing changes because we don't change it. We keep begging people and asking people for things that we need to be doing for ourselves. So let's do it. And I just want to applaud you for creating this model that can change and revolutionize education around the globe for us, because we have to put ourselves at the center of our own lives. We got 2 minutes, brother.
Right. You're right. And what I see us as here is like 40 million black people, black hamsters here in a big hamster cage running around on the wheel. We busy, but we're never going to get any place. And I'm getting applications. So if there's people on the line that they are teachers, they have expertise, they have skill in some way, or they're interested in helping, you can send me your resume and I'll put it with our resume. So we're going to hire. This is going to be employment opportunities for people too. This is not just some wild idea about a university. This is going to be a big employment enterprise. Imagine 54 universities one in every African nation other than Ghana. That's 55 universities. So we're talking about something that will have a legacy of transformation, not just some wild idea that I might have come up with or a couple of us came up with. We're thinking long term. This will go on hundreds of years after I'm dead and all of us on this call are gone. The university will still be there working. So if you have something they can do, send it to me at Ashe1ltd@gmail. ASHE1ltd@gmail. And I'll respond. I'll put it in our folder. When we get ready to hire people, we'll call you. If you have skill, you're in with African-centeredness and Pan-Africanism. If you're not, then we don't need you. If you are, then there's probably a place for you.
Dr.
All right. Well,
got to button it up. Say one thing. Just one thing here, Doc. If you just a couple people that's a part of this and folks that may be interested can also be a part of it as far as investing into this piece. We got to say that.
Yeah, they could. We're selling. We have 1 million shares of stock. We're selling 490,000. We need 3,333 people to buy 100 shares at $3 for $300, and we can generate $1 million to start the construction of the first building. The building will be in the shape of the ancient Ankh from Kemet. We're going to try to get an astrologer to align the building's position with the Orion's belt, like in the Giza Plateau. So we're not just making up things. We're trying to do the same thing our ancestors have done before. So people can get involved as a stockholder. It's not a big investment, but if we get enough, we say when spider webs unite, they can tie up a lion. So if we get 3,333 people that put up $300 each, we'll have $1 million and we'll start the construction immediately.
Okay. Well, Nana, we're going to have conversation about this online. I have another radio show and a StreamYard show, and I'm going to give you that platform to give that invitation once again. But right now, we want to invite you to join us at Wings Academy, and that's 10615 La Montier Avenue on August 7th from 2 to 6 p.m. It will be Dr. David Whitaker, Dr. James Brown, Wayne Chandler, and Baina Bello, Professor Baina Bello. Thanks for joining us today. And we'd like to thank our listening audience for tuning in. I just want to get this quick one in as well. We're going to be doing a concert at Lachmere Arts on August 20th, 7 p.m. Ken LeGrand from Horns and Things will be performing with Vince Robinson and the Jazz Poets. Go to Lachmere Arts or my Facebook page to get more details about that event. And we're also planning to bring Nana to Lachmere Arts with a couple of others, very prominent guests. We'll give you the details on that as the weeks roll out. We'd like to thank our engineer, Tristan Sanchez, for bringing us through today. Thank you, brother. Good job. And thank you for listening. With that, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, do everything you can to make today your best day. Peace.
Peace.
The proceeding was a paid program brought to you by Lynn Hampton. The views and opinions